Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.
Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Here now is your host, Jennifer Mealy, Chief Communications Officer and Managing Director of Evangelization of the Diocese of Greensburg.
Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy. Very happy to be here today with a fantastic leadership team of the Westmoreland Historical Society. They have a big event coming up on December 29th, so we want to talk about that. Also, one of their exhibits and everything that you and your family may be interested in getting involved in over the holidays with the Westmoreland Historical Society. I'm going to start by introducing my guest today. Lisa Hayes is the Executive Director of the Westmoreland Historical Society. I'm also on today with Pam Curtin. She's the Education and Interpretation Manager. And finally, we have Joanna Moyer. She's the Collections Manager for the Historical Society. Ladies, I got a powerhouse team on today. I'm pretty excited. Thank you for being here.
Our pleasure.
Wonderful. So, Lisa, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you tell us, just in general, if someone isn't familiar with the Westmoreland Historical Society, can you give them the update and tell them what they need to know?
Well, sure. As any historical society is pleased to say, we have a history. And we were founded in 1908. And with some brief hiatus during World War II, we have been having programs and meeting. And we recently moved out our headquarters to historic Hannistown. We've managed it with the county since 1969. But we finally moved our headquarters out there. So we have a wonderful history education center at historic Hannistown, as well as, the guided tours and the programs that we offer at the partially reconstructed 18th century village. Hannistown has a great history. You really need to come out and learn about our history if you haven't already. But in addition to historic Hannistown, out at the Education Center, we have a very good genealogy library, regional history as well, local communities. So a lot of people come out and do their genealogy research there. Within the History Education Center is the Kendra Gallery, where we can host changing exhibits about different aspects of our history. And it allows us to expand beyond the 18th century and historic Hannistown. Westmoreland County is very fortunate to have an impact in our nation's history for a prolonged period of time. And we just don't have one period of time when we had significant history, but, from colonial times up through the Industrial Revolution and transportation history and on in today, our citizens have been making substantial contributions to our nation's history. We like to say that you can tell national and world history through the people and events in Westmoreland County. So that's sort of a thumbnail version of what we do. We have a magazine. It's wonderful. Yeah,
great
programs.
Just a great pitch. Altogether, it's fantastic. So I have to ask you three ladies. I'm going to take one at a time. And I'll start with you, Lisa. What is your background? And, how did you get interested in this kind of work?
To some degree, history is in my blood. My grandmother was the last person to own the Compass Inn in Laughlin Town, which is now a museum. My earliest memories are of being at my grandmother's house, which was Compass Inn. And then I volunteered there in high school, and that's really what led to what was just going to be a temporary job with the Ligonier Valley Historical Society. But I stayed, I just stayed there and then moved to the Westmoreland Historical Society. I'm actually certified to teach biology, graduated from West Virginia University, but I have found that science and history have many similarities. Both follow data. In science, you're following observational data, experimental data. In history, you're often following archaeological data. Documentary data. So it's very similar mindset.
Very interesting. Pam, how about you? Tell us about you and where you grew up and how you cultivated this interest in history.
Sure, thank you. So I grew up in Latrobe, and so there was certainly a lot of history around me growing up there. And I studied history at St. Vincent College. I'm a third generation graduate of St. Vincent. And so I was immersed in the history there. And they also have what's called a public history program, which is specifically focused on how historical information is interpreted and accessed by the public. And so I was really able to cultivate my interest in museums there. And I went on to study public history and cultural resource management at West Virginia University. And my work as an educator, I really began at Powder Mill Nature Reserve as an environmental educator. So I also have a background in both, natural history as well as cultural history too.
That is fantastic. And then, I see 2 West Virginia grads are now together. So I'm sure that's no surprise there, had some common interests. So let's go over to Joanne. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi. I have a sort of a circuitous route to all of this as well. I also started out in sciences when I was a freshman at Millersville. Now it's a university. It was a state college back in the dark ages. And I ended up switching majors. It was an art major, art education. And I ended up going to grad school at the George Washington University for museum education. I always thought I was going to work in an art museum. Well, I ended up working, doing an internship with the National Park Service on the C&O Canal National Historical Park. And just really, I'd always been interested in history. Our family vacations always had some sort of history component to it. And I ended up working after the Park Service, working with the city archaeologists in Alexandria, Virginia, as their education coordinator. And years went on. I ended up moving. I'm from Greensburg, and I ended up moving back here with my husband and baby daughter. And eventually the job for the education coordinator at the Historical Society came up, and I worked with that. And then for the past 3-4 years, I've switched over to collections, which I'm really enjoying quite a lot. And a lot of fun looking at everything we have, discovering new things all the time, and getting new things. COVID seems to have prompted people to clean out their houses. And so we've been receiving a number of interesting donations from people.
Very nice. Now I have to ask one follow-up question to Lisa. Lisa, if you're just joining us, is executive director of the Westmoreland Historical Society, and her grandmother was the last person to own the Compass Inn, which is now a museum in Ligonier. So do you have a good trace on your roots then? You know that your ancestors settled in Ligonier?
Yes. I'm lucky in that other people have done the research for me, so I can repeat it. But my mother's family moved to the Ligonier Valley in 1814. And they added on to Compass Inn in 1820. So those dates
so they were very early settlers here then.
Yes. And my father's family precedes Westmoreland County residents, goes back to the Revolutionary War period.
Isn't that amazing? So interesting. I could talk to you 3 girls all day. This is very, very interesting. And, but I know that we're here to talk about the Historical Society as well. And I know that we're here to talk about the Holiday Family Day coming up on December 29th. Would one of you like to take the lead on that and give us the summary?
I think Pam would be a good one to start that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yes, our Holiday Family Day is on Wednesday, December 29th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this is a program that's taking place kind of in the period between Christmas and New Year's. So we're kind of continuing the holiday spirit, wanting to provide a way for families and loved ones to gather together and continue their celebrations. This is a great time when a lot of children are off from school, and anybody who's looking for something to do is welcome to come out to the Education Center, which is located at Historic Cannistown. And we have a number of different activities taking place this day. Inside the Education Center, we will be offering some like holiday and winter themed crafts. We'll also be doing cookie decorating. We'll make little kits and you'll be able to decorate a holiday cookie. You'll also receive admission to the exhibit gallery, and in a little bit you'll hear about the interesting exhibit that's on display at the Education Center. And one of the special programs that we're excited to offer this year is in partnership with the Westmoreland Symphony Orchestra. At 1 p.m., we'll be offering a picture book reading. And this book is called Itzhak, A Boy Who Loved the Violin. And it's the story of Itzhak Perlman, who was a Jewish violinist born in Tel Aviv, who later immigrated to the United States. Growing up, he faced becoming disabled as a result of contracting polio, but soon after became a child prodigy on the violin. By age 13, he was attending Juilliard and performing on the Ed Sullivan Show, and today is considered one of the most accomplished violinists of all time. So what makes our program special is that the picture book reading will also include musical interludes performed by a violinist from the Westmoreland Symphony Orchestra. And so we're really excited to bring the story of Itzhak Perlman and the music to our program at the Historical Society. So again, that's a great partnership that we're really excited about. And those are all activities that are taking place inside the Education Center and outside. Weather permitting, we'll also have our Hannah's Tavern open, which is the reconstructed tavern that would have been at Hannistown during the period of the Revolutionary War. It will be open and visitors will be able to come inside and take a look around. And we'll also have it decorated kind of in the style of what Christmas might have looked like in the late 18th century. Now, that very much varied according to one's cultural and religious traditions. So, for example, the Quakers of Pennsylvania didn't really celebrate feast days. And so there's a number of people in Pennsylvania who really wouldn't have decorated for Christmas or celebrated it. And the Scots-Irish folks who would have settled Hannistown were mostly Presbyterian, who didn't at this time believe that there was a biblical commandment to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And so there really weren't Christmas Day traditions. However, they might have celebrated Twelfth Night or Old Christmas. But what we will have on display in the tavern is called a Paradiesbaum or paradise tree, which is a German tradition. And there were a lot of Germans in Western Pennsylvania during this late 18th century period. And the paradise tree is kind of a precursor to our modern Christmas tree. They would have decorated it with apples, representing the story of Adam and Eve. And that was, again, a tradition brought to the American colonies by German settlers and later becomes the Christmas trees that we know today. There's also a little wooden tiered structure called a Christmas pyramid that would have had candles and been decorated. And that's something we'll also have on display as well. And lastly, we will also outdoors have an outdoor kind of self-guided walking tour, which has, we will be placing signs around the paths at historic Hannistown. And each of those signs will include different little vignettes about holiday history. So they include things like the origin of the Christmas tree, the development of glass ornaments, the tradition of sending holiday cards and caroling, the origins of Santa Claus. And so that's something that you can visit actually throughout the Christmas period, whether our education center is open or whether it's our off hours as well. But while you're walking around on the holiday family day, that is certainly something that you can take a look at outside as well. A great opportunity to see the grounds and enjoy the some of the fresh air. And lastly, at the Education Center, we'll also, for the holiday family day, have some after Christmas sales in the museum shop. Some of our holiday merchandise will be on sale, and we've got a really nice selection of different handmade items or kind of historically inspired holiday gifts. And so hopefully if you come out, you might be able to find some little gifts as well.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I have one word for you. Wow.
Oh, sure.
This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Like an amazing day, a holiday family day coming up on December 29th.
This is Lisa again. I'd like to add a little bit. Just a reminder, Hannistown is a county park, so you are welcome to be out there walking the trails and looking at those Christmas trivia signs that we have up dawn to dusk, 7 days a week. So that's not confined to when we're open. And I did want to add a little bit about why we scheduled a holiday family day. We love having our family. And they often stay from Christmas to New Year's. And, Christmas is fun, and it's fun to play those games for a day or two. And then you start looking for things to do. And, people don't have to go to Pittsburgh to find things to do between Christmas and New Year's. They can find it right here in Westmoreland County at Historic Hannistown and other museums that may offer special days. So, stick around. There's lots to do here.
You're listening to our leadership team from the Westmoreland Historical Society talk about Holiday Family Day on December 29th and all of the things going on at Historic Hannistown. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy. We'll be right back.
This is Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. If you have a suggestion for a topic, or if your nonprofit organization would like to be featured on this program, call us during regular business hours at 724-216-1200.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.
Welcome back to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy. Happy to be talking today with the folks from the Westmoreland Historical Society, Lisa Hayes, Pam Curtin, and Joanna Moyer. All fantastic interview today. Really excited about all of the things that you have going on. Lisa, you have to be so proud of the people that you work with. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And hearing them talk about themselves reminds me how very accomplished they are and how lucky we are to have them working in the role of history here in Westmoreland County. And also, when I sit back and I look at the year, we do an annual report every year. And it's like, yeah, we do a lot of stuff with a very small staff and some really great volunteers that we couldn't function without. So, we thank them. We thank our volunteers. But we're really excited about our latest exhibit. And, Penn's Woods, Plenty for the Use of Man. I love the title. And Joanna can tell us a little bit more about how it came to be.
Hi, this is Joanna. Yes, we did a lot of planning on this exhibit. We have an exhibit committee that worked together for several months, a year at least, before we actually installed the exhibit. And we went through several ideas. One of our board members is an avid tool collector, and most of the exhibit uses Bob Kendra's various woodworking tools. So the theme of wood, as we affectionately called it, the wood exhibit, expanded to include our history in Westmoreland County, basically from prehistory, the Paleolithic, all the way to the present. And certainly Native people were our first woodworkers. They used the forest and understood the trees and their various attributes. And the title of the exhibit comes from a letter that William Penn wrote to a group of Quaker investors not long after the colony was founded in 1681, describing all the attributes here in Pennsylvania. And of course, during this period of time, wood is a primary material that most people are using and are familiar with. And so discussing the trees, not only for construction and purposes, but their fruit and the nuts, all different kinds of things, as well as their beauty, was a real enticement to bring people here, and particularly people getting wooded lots gave them the ability to build homes, collect firewood, and of course, look at the forest for its resources. So the tools that actually used to make wood, make wooden things, are made from wood, handles, and all different kinds of components. Today, we're used to plastic, everything being plastic and often metal. Now, certainly blades were important for cutting and shaping, but the handles and different components of tools were all made of wood. But you had to understand what the various properties of wood are. Like hickory has a lot of natural spring in the wood. So if you're using it for a handle to cut or hammer or do heavy kind of pounding, you want that spring in the wood. Other kinds of wood had moisture resistance. And of course, pine trees, you get resin, which are adhesives. So we go through our history here as people arrived in Pennsylvania, how they harvested the forests, how they looked at the trees, and all the various trades that came out of woodworking and forestry. We did a lot of research on using probate records, which are estate records, wills, tax records, and it's astonishing the number of people who were in these woodworking trades. So when you look at a probate record, the inventory of a person's estate, someone who had a lot of planes, saws, other kinds of equipment, multiple pieces, generally they did turn out to be a cabinet maker or in some of the woodworking trades. So we get little pieces of background about them. The newspapers, advertisers, cabinet makers, chair makers throughout the county, people looking for apprentices to work in these jobs. So there gives us a little bit of insight and a little window into the past and how people worked. And of course, with the woods here up on the ridges, sawmills were very important, exporting timber. And of course, we talk about our trees as well, too. We were lucky to have the Westmoreland Photographers Society help us with this exhibit. We asked them for a few pictures of the woodlands and different kinds of trees. Well, we got wonderful photos. And so we included that not only in the gallery, but in the hallway, Westmoreland photographers of our beautiful Pennsylvania landscape. And of course, Bob's tools really do tell the story of different trades and how people worked. So we're really pleased with that. And then we included examples of pieces, things, I call it the made-o wood area. So most people, because they didn't have plastic or other items, constructed lots of different household items, not just furniture, using wood. And we also included two very nationally recognized furniture makers, artists, Paul Sarofchak and Matthew Stein. Each take a very different approach to woodworking and how they do their work. Matt Stein does faithfully reconstructed 18th century types of furniture, particularly Windsor chairs. And if anyone is familiar with Paul, he is a registered architect and takes a very different approach to furniture making. If you go up to the Ligonier Valley Library, the trees that were harvested from the diamond when it was refurbished a few years back, that wood is used in cabinetry in the Ligonier Valley Library. And Paul's work is everywhere. His wife, Mandy, has a gallery on Main. I believe that's what it is, in Ligonier as well, too. So we cover a lot of territory in this exhibit, but it's very exciting, and it was interesting to work with a tool collector and use items that were not really what we would say in our collection. We really do try to use. We have a number of items in our collection that are tool based, but Bob's are the cream of the crop. So he really has a very good knowledge of work in the woodworking trades and is a connoisseur of tools.
That sounds amazing.
Listening to Joanna talks reminds me about a couple of my favorite things about the exhibit. One of them is people made their own tools to work with, and they took a lot of pride in those tools. A lot of those tools are beautiful works of art, not only functional, but really beautiful. So that's one thing that surprised me and impressed me about the exhibit. The other thing, I think Joanna was very thoughtful and clever even in putting together some sayings and that, quotes from people that sort of illustrate the power of wood and tools. And one of my favorite is from Abraham Lincoln. And he says, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 sharpening the blade. That's a paraphrase, but the idea is there. So that you'll see sayings like that really are wise and interesting at the same time.
How can you see this? What are the hours? What is the charge to get in? Can you explain that?
Well, it was very important for us to make this accessible to families. So it's $5 to see the exhibit per adult, but students, children 18 and under are free. So a family can come see the exhibit for just $10 if mom and dad both come. And we are open Thursday through Sunday right now. Our hours are 10:30 to 4:30, except on Sunday it's 12:30 to 4:30. So we just encourage you to come out. There is a fee for the Holiday Family Day. Pam, can you refresh my memory on that?
Sure. So yes, for the Holiday Family Day, which again is Wednesday, December 29th, that is $8 for adults, $6 for seniors and students through grade 12, free for children 5 and under, and also free for members of the Westmoreland Historical Society. So if you're a member of the society, you're welcome to come out and enjoy all of those programs for free admission.
Joanna, you should be congratulated on a fantastic exhibit. I'm looking forward to seeing it and making my way out there. Very interesting. Pam, wonderful job planning Family Day. Lisa, you have a fantastic team here. I've enjoyed talking to the three of you so much. Somebody want to give me the website, the phone number, the Facebook page? Can someone detail all that for me?
Our website is westmorelandhistory.org. Phone number is 724-836-1800. Our Facebook page is up in the air right now, but we do have a page dedicated to the museum shop, and that's Westmoreland History Shop.
Perfect. Wonderful. I have Lisa Hayes. She's the executive director of the Westmoreland Historical Society. Pam Curtin is the education and interpretation manager, and Joanna Moyer is the collections manager for the Westmoreland Historical Society. Ladies, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for giving us this opportunity. We're excited about our history, and we want everybody to be excited.
You should be. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB.
This has been Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings in and around Westmoreland County. Join us again next week on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.